Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Week 1 Fantasy Football Preview. That's right. I got right into it.
Here.
It's Week 1. We're thrilled that you've joined us this weekend. We're excited to be talking about some legit NFL football. All the speculation is over. All the preseason and everything that goes with that is over as well. We've got some legit NFL football this week. We're going to preview all of the major fantasy stories heading into Week 1 and answer some questions as they come in. So that's a shout out to you folks who are watching right now on our YouTube channel. You could send in your questions live during the show. We'll try and plug as many in as we can while we're going through here tonight as well. And we're going to have some fun discussion along the way. Guys, Week 1 is here. I don't think there has to be a whole lot of like hyperbole or hype here. Give me your dream scenario for Week 1 fantasy.
1-0.
Yeah, I'm assuming you're going further than 1-0.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of like anticlimactic. You just want to win one game?
Well,
you said Week 1.
Okay.
Well,
every league I'm in, I want to win.
Every league I'm in, 1-0. That's the ultimate dream right there.
all right, I'll dig a little further here. Are you looking to go with kind of like a chalk lineup this week, or do you want like somebody that you've just been like pounding the table for to go off so that you can kind of toot your horn a little bit? You know.
Listen. I don't have enough clout as the other three of you. So I'm happy with 1-0. However, 1-0 comes.
The other guy scores 14 points. His whole team combined. I won 1-0. 1-0. 1-0, baby.
If I win by 1 or 100, I don't care.
I'll answer your question. I go very chalky Week 1. I'm not going to take shots on Week 1. I'm pretty much the order I drafted the guys in is who's starting on my team.
Yeah.
Unless there's a nightmare matchup and there's like two guys I drafted literally back to back on a turn, then there's some decisions to make. But I'm not getting cute Week 1. I'm just not.
Yeah.
I'm not. I will talk about this a little bit more later too, but there's no cuteness Week 1. Safe picks and 1-0. Let's get 1-0 out of the way, and then I can start being cute and destroying the rest of my league.
So you go 1-15.
All right. Well, listen, Week 1 is here, so let's walk through some of the major storylines kind of heading into this upcoming week. Week 1, Game 1 now features Nick Foles under center. I think a lot of us kind of speculated,
Miles just died.
Miles this was going to happen. So here are the questions that go along with that, though.
Somebody text his wife.
Is anyone giving any thought to actually starting him, number one? And what does it do for players that you have rostered as Eagles this week? Does anyone specifically move up? Does anyone specifically move down?
I'm just so sad.
Listen,
I think ultimately is all.
If you listen to us on a regular basis, like, you shouldn't have to start Nick Foles, because one, if you took Carson Wentz, it should have been when he fell to you in value, and then you backed him up with a solid backup. Or two, even if you did reach for him, you backed him up with a solid backup. Like, you shouldn't have been scrambling. You shouldn't have to scramble for Nick Foles right now. You should have had a plan in place already, knowing that there was at least the potential for Carson to not play. And I think all of us own at least a share of Carson somewhere, if I remember correctly, going through our drafts and stuff. And I think all of us went into it knowing, we had a backup plan in place just in case week 1 he wasn't a go. So again, shameless plug for us. If you were listening to us, you were prepared for this moment.
If you're going into week 1 scrambling for a quarterback, like, you might as well mail this season in, man. This is not your season. Just move along. Maybe start like fantasy golf will be good for you, or something else.
Hockey's coming.
No, nobody wants that.
I'm starting Nick Foles in a league this week.
This isn't for you, man.
Hold on.
Fantasy golf is for you.
Now, hold on. Clarify. It's like a 7 quarterback per.
No, let me explain my situation. It is a 2 quarterback league. And I do have Carson Wentz, and my backup quarterback is Jameis Winston, which I did strategically. So I have Cam Newton, which is tasty, but I'm stuck without Wentz and Winston. But I figured with the depth, I was okay there. I'm looking Nick Foles. I'm looking Andy Dalton. I'm looking around. And I am rolling with Foles. I feel good about the team at home with the energy. We'll be all right. To answer the rest of your questions, it doesn't move anybody for me. I might expect a little bit less, but the players I was going to start anyhow, I'm going to start. I'm still going to start Nelson Aguilar. He's going to destroy it. I'm still starting Jay Ajayi. He's getting a ton of volume. I'm not starting Alshon Jeffrey because he's not playing. I mean, I think the Eagles were pretty cut and dried. Yeah, thanks. And then I in my 8 leagues, I do not own 1 share of Zach Ertz. Shocker if you've listened to us in the past. But if I did, I'm deploying him as usual. I didn't draft him as the 3rd tight end to sit him because Wentz isn't in.
Right.
So I don't see, maybe expect a little less, but I don't see how you bench Eagles because of Foles. Unless, of course, like I said earlier, you're one of those, like you got 2 guys separated by a millimeter and you want to bench Jay Ajayi for someone else. That's fine.
Yeah, no, that's kind of where I would lean with this. Like if you're a guy who's looking at Ajayi versus
Derrick Henry,
a Derrick Henry as a flex. Yeah, it's exactly where I was going. I would probably actually give the edge right now to Ajayi because I feel like as much as Doug Peterson doesn't like to deviate from his game plan, I do think with as many injuries as they have, they may lean more toward the run. Atlanta's susceptible to the run versus the pass. Whether that's a little bit or a lot, we'll find out, I guess. But and then with Zach Ertz, I just feel like this actually bumps him a little bit for me. Like he's already pretty close to the top, but he was kind of Foles' security blanket for that playoff run. So I would expect him to be kind of like the focal point, or at least one of the focal points on Thursday night.
Dude, please start Nick Foles over Andy Dalton this week.
Okay, Colts.
No, I mean, it's just a good decision for you because you're playing against me, and Andy Dalton is definitely going to have a better game than Nick Foles.
I'll be honest, I love what this does for Ajayi. I have Ajayi much higher now than he's pre-ranked. He's pre-ranked running back 10.5 PPR, 20.5 PPR, and this week, listen, I think I'd feel the same way with Carson in because I think they'd bring him along slowly, but without him. Listen, I think Nick Foles looked a little shaky in this preseason. I think that both of you Eagles fans would agree with that, and that's saying it nicely. Other than that, I think they are going to run heavy. I think that's kind of the way you can beat Atlanta is by keeping them off the field because I don't want Nick Foles to have to get into a shootout with Matt Ryan. And, I love the Eagles defense, but come on, nobody wants to shoot out with that Atlanta team. You'd be stupid to want it. So, yeah, I think they're going to be run heavy. I think Ajayi's going to be the workhorse this week. Again, I'm going back to I know Doug doesn't really deviate from his plan, but Ajayi is fresh legs that you don't have to pay at the end of this season if you don't want him. You can literally run him into the ground. It does not matter.
All right, so we got this question in on YouTube as well, but it was next on our agenda, so good timing. Le'Veon Bell still has not reported to the team with the Steelers. So despite my Microsoft Word auto-correcting the wrong spelling of his name, which I hate more than anything, is James Conner worth a start if Bell does not play week 1?
No.
It seems like it'd be enticing, but don't do it. Don't.
Yeah, for me, well, number one, I believe we read that on good authority, Lev Bell should be reporting tomorrow, which is Wednesday. So that obviously makes this move. But even if he doesn't, number one, Cleveland's not Cleveland. So don't look at the matchup and think it's a lock. They're definitely better on defense.
Yeah, their front 7 is pretty good.
Yeah, and more importantly to me, it goes to my whole point about handcuffs in general. It's not bye week time. And guys haven't dropped like flies. Your roster should not be in desperate need of James Conner right now. There's no way, even with volume, if Bell's out, and I do think he'll get volume. And Mike Tomlin said as much today in his press conference. He will get volume if he's the starter. But even then, he's not as talented as the guy you took as your 3rd running back or 4th, unless you had a rough draft. Let's shoot straight. I'd absolutely rather start, we said, Ajayi Henry. I'd rather start Royce Freeman. There are these guys that you were going to count on as your flex. Bump them up for Lev at the running back spot and put your best receiver at flex. I don't see how your roster has James Conner as the next best player.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, and the other thing that I think that we lose sight of is, we talk about this all the time as goons, and I know that our fans and listeners have heard us say this before. Just because he's starting for a team does not mean that he's giving you that same production. Just because, backup running back B is starting for Zeke does not mean you get Zeke's numbers. And Lev is a special type of player in that, like, the things that he do, no one else really does. The stopping and starting and hiding behind linemen and taking off. Like, that's what makes Lev special. James Conner's not going to give you that. So there's no point in reaching right now just because, Lev's out, so I'm going to get 100 yards and 10 catches from James Conner. No, you're not.
Yeah, and just a last thought on that. Like, we really don't know anything about him. I mean, we have a feeling on him because we've watched him play in college. We've seen him play a little bit in the preseason. He's got a nice 4.5 yards per carry average for the limited sample size that we have. But it's just too risky at this point compared to what you've already drafted. So just to kind of put a button on this, Bell comes back tomorrow or Thursday. Are there any reservations about playing him at all?
No.
Not reservation about playing him. Like, I'll be the guy that says that I'm still nervous when a guy misses a whole bunch of time and then comes in, not even like with a full week of practice, but with like 2 days worth of practice. And then you're going to expect him to go out there. I know that these are professional athletes and they're in shape, and I'm not saying that, but he might not be running back 1 this week. He might be running back like 7, 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there. And then in like a week or two, we can see running back 1 at 11 on a consistent basis. You know what I mean?
Even if that's the case, though, he's most likely going to be the one on your team.
But even if he's not, he's better than your flex. Like,
right.
Yeah.
He's one of your 3 best running backs on your roster, even on
he has to be.
Or you're loaded.
Right.
Like, if you can afford to bench him, that means you drafted like Gurley, Kamara, and Fournette.
Yep.
And left Bell.
And again, the question that you're always asking when you're looking at a player to replace someone, what's the likelihood of them getting into the end zone? And I think it's still pretty good with Lev. So, that's where I would still have a lot less reservation with him this week.
I would even be shocked if he doesn't play. I would be shocked if Connor doesn't score a touchdown. Like, it's just their game script. Their running back is going to score at least 1 touchdown.
Right. All right, next question here. Nathan Peterman, or as I like to call him, Jay Peterman, will start for the Bills week 1. Does anyone on the Bills have any fantasy value remaining?
No.
I already told you no about 3 weeks ago. Like, if you're don't draft any Bills, and then if you did, you didn't listen. So
listen, Shady was the only player that was kind of playable, and they're gonna stack 9. They're gonna stack 10 in the box because you don't have to cover Kelvin Benjamin. So you just have to stick one guy on the other wide receiver who can anyone name? Because no, they already cut Corey Coleman after trading for him 3 weeks ago. This team is laughable on offense. I think that they're going to be better on defense than we expect them to be. I think they have a lot of young pieces, but this offense is going to be a joke.
Do you think that the curse of the Browns came to the Bills when Tyrod moved to the Browns?
It might have.
Somehow went over there.
Yeah, I do say no with you guys, but it has nothing to do with Peterman for me. Like, what were you expecting out of Josh Allen or AJ McCarron? Like, they didn't move the needle. It's not like this guy came at. I didn't want any of the 3 guys to win this quarterback battle. None of them make me want Kelvin or Zay Jones or Charles Clay. I mean, if you drafted Shady, you're probably playing him. I mean, regardless.
Yeah.
At least for now. But I didn't want any of those guys with any of these 3 quarterbacks.
But you know what? At least Josh Allen gave you the threat of oh man, this guy can throw the ball far. We got to cover these receivers deep.
Yeah,
I don't even think you have that with Peterman.
If your receivers get points for tackles after picks, yes, Josh Allen gives you some value. Outside of that, I'm good.
That was so fast that you come back to that it actually made my whole night.
I mean, it was way too good of a set for me to not slam it home. I got to be honest.
Listen, for what it's worth, I'm agreeing with you guys. The problem with them more than anything is their offensive line. It's not going to be good. So even at that, I think if you have a tough call as at your flex position with Shady and you've got a better option, I might lean away from Shady depending on what the other option is, just because their line is so bad. And I know he creates yardage, but still.
It's Baltimore on top of that. It's not like these guys are playing some kind of Swiss cheese. It's the Ravens defense.
Yeah.
It's not going to help how bad their offense is.
And Rock, as a Jets fan, I would think that you would know that Jeremy Curley is their wide receiver on the other side. So,
Yikes.
all right, Antonio.
Yikes.
Yes,
I was just making mention of the fact that they already cut Corey Coleman. That's all I was saying.
I think they have Andre Holmes too. I'm not sure, but
one of those Andres.
Yeah. All right, Antonio Gates has rejoined the Chargers after going unsigned all offseason. There were rumors and speculation about this for a long time. Everybody expected that he was just going to kind of not do the whole camp thing and come in ready to play. How long do you expect it to take before he is fantasy relevant, if at all?
I don't see how it's not like right now. I mean, maybe my hopes are a little too high. And when I say fantasy, I guess it's the tight end landscape. Like he's not going to be what he was. He's certainly not in the Gronk, Ertz, Kelsey. I don't think he's in the Greg Olsen, Evan Ingram. But like, if you're that 12-teamer and you have George Kittle, OJ Howard, guys like that, he's as relevant as those guys right now. And I think mostly because of the timing to Hunter Henry's injury, everybody in the world knew he was signing 4 months ago. Like as soon as Hunter Henry tore his ACL, everyone who watches football was like, I bet Antonio Gates will just come back for another year.
Right.
So I'm sure he's in football shape. That as a vet like that, he knows what he needed to do to get into football shape. So the reason he signed this week is because I don't feel like coming to camp. I'd rather spend time with my family. So I just think he'll pick up kind of where he left off. He hasn't missed 4 years. He played last year. He's a red zone threat. He is what he is. Think Jimmy Graham last year. This guy could absolutely have 400 yards but 10 touchdowns. At the end of that tight end, that's relevant.
Well, I'll just chime in quick because I saw Rocco shaking his head right away when you said that you didn't think there'd be any gap. But look, he's just as touchdown relevant as tight end 8, 9, 10, 11. So I guess I don't get why he wouldn't be in a year when if you don't have a top 3 tight end, everything is just grasping at straws anyway. He's just as good as option as anybody else, in my opinion.
I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that either. Like four. I know he hasn't been retired for 4 years, but like something happens when you like mentally check out and say, okay, I'm going to retire and my career's over. And even though he's had 4 months to get into quote unquote football shape, there's a lot to say that like, hey, I haven't thrown with my quarterback in 8 months.
But you did it for 13 years.
I understand that.
Highly effectively.
I'm not.
You don't just lose that.
I know you don't just lose it, but like, all I'm saying is like, listen. By week 4, I'm all in on Antonio Gates. I just think it's going to take some time to get back into a rhythm. You know, I know that it's not really the same position, but like I remember hearing stories about like Jerome Bettis at the end of his career, where like he knew it was time to hang it up because like it would take him like 30 minutes to get out of bed in the morning. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying that that's Antonio Gates, but like,
yeah, sure.
But like, he mentally checked out. It was time for him to walk away. And minus this Hunter Henry injury, like he's not here. You know what I mean? So I understand he's had time to get back into it, but I just think that I'm not starting him week 1 as tight end and thinking I'm going to get the same production as tight end 8, 9, 10. Like, I'm going to give it a week. And I could be wrong. If he comes out and has 2 touchdowns, well, then next week we're back on Antonio Gates. But, like, it's a guy who was, like, already on his way out the door. Then he walked out the door, stayed out the door, and now he's back because of an injury. Like, I'm just saying, there's definitely a chance that, like, it takes him a week or so.
I just don't think that he's the same as – you know, you said the top 3, but the 4 through 12 guys are going to have really good seasons. They're not like outside of Jimmy Graham, they're not touchdown dependent. They're guys that are going to have yardage. So assuming that he is that 400 yard and 10 touchdown guys, probably 10 of the 16 weeks, he's going to be outscored by at least the top 10 guys. So I can't imagine he's going to be relevant at all.
See, I don't agree with that. If he's a 10 touchdown tight end, he's going to be top 10.
It's possible, but listen, when you look at the tight end position, like these aren't guys that are on the regular getting 100 yards receiving. They
No,
might
of
have,
course.
7 catches for 75, but a touchdown puts you there at 6 points just as quickly as a guy who's going to have 75 yards. So I guess that's where I'm kind of leaning to, although I do get your point.
I don't think he's scoring 10 times. So,
but if you would have said to me that it feels like the Chargers have changed their red zone philosophy, I could have bought into that because.
Well, of course they did. They have 2 8-foot receivers that are freak athletes. Of course,
but even
they
beyond
changed
that,
their philosophy.
The last couple of years, it's been all Melvin Gordon.
Melvin. Yep.
So I mean, that's kind of a hesitation, but I don't know. I just feel like there's something to be said about that chemistry. Like if you put Peyton and Marvin back on the field right now, I'd buy right back in on that chemistry because that doesn't go away.
They're throwing blindfolded hitches again.
Right.
Like Marvin's running the route and the ball's going to hit him in the chest.
Right.
All right. Well, Alfred Morris or Matt Breida? That's the biggest question of the week, it seems like, to this point. You could tell it's definitely week 1 of fantasy when that's the biggest question of the week. Does either guy warrant a start over the other, in your opinion, and why?
Not this week. So, number 1, I want to see it shake out. Number 2, they're at Minnesota. I'm just out this week.
Yeah.
But I'm all over the Alfred Morris bandwagon. I rushed out and grabbed him in as many leagues as I could as soon as I saw the Jerick McKinnon news break. And it's tempered expectations, right? I mean, I'm not expecting him to come in and put in even what Jerick was going to do. These guys are going to split. But for me, 3 of the 4 games is Dallas's clear back last year. He was over 80 scrimmage yards. He had 4.8 yards per carry last year. He's a gem in Shanahan's offense. And listen, I know this was his first 2 years in the league, so he was a younger guy. But the only 2 seasons he's played with Kyle Shanahan as his offensive coordinator, 2,888 yards and 20 touchdowns. I don't care that he only totaled 20 catches in those 2 seasons. I just don't. I'm getting this PPR shoved down my throat like crazy on XM Fantasy Radio. I can't handle it anymore. I don't care that Breida is going to catch 40 more passes. I don't. He's not as effective as a ball carrier. He's not going to score nearly as much. Stop with the Chris Thompson, Duke Johnson, Matt Breida, Theo Riddick, Danny Woodhead crap. I'm out. That's my mini rant on PPR backs. I just can't. I think Breida's a better runner than those guys, and he'll have opportunities. Personally, I'd always rather have the guy who's getting 15 to 20 carries.
On that note, and I'm going to preface this by saying that I agree with you. The Vikings is a terrible matchup.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said about the fact that Alfred Morris, when interviewed today, kind of mentioned that, hey, look, I'm still learning the playbook. It's still going to take me a couple weeks before I'm comfortable in the pass protection. So if you're absolutely desperate and you're someone who drafted Jerick McKinnon high and you have to play a running back or you're desperate for a flex and you're at a deeper league and you have to make a dart throw, I think I'd probably go Breida this week because I think they might be playing from behind or chasing for most of this game. And you might have an opportunity just for some garbage points, just to be quite honest with you.
Yeah. How about this question? I'm springing this on you. It's the same situation we talked about 20 minutes ago. Do you go Breida or James Conner if Lev does not report? Because we're still asking, is your roster better than those 2 players, or are we in that dire straits?
If you're in that dire of a strait, which I would hope you're not at this point, but we know there are some deep 16-team leagues where somebody invested really high in Jerick McKinnon.
You lose McKinnon, you're dead in those.
Or Bell. I would take Conner because, as Deal said, he's more likely to score.
Listen, I've been holding this in. It is never Alfred Morris. And here's why. It's so I'm not the Jerick McKinnon fan, but if you were that guy, and you were, Miles, that bought in on Jerick McKinnon, Alfred Morris is the polar freaking opposite of Jerick McKinnon. Matt Breida is Jerick McKinnon. They're the same dude. Except
the whole talent level thing.
No, you saw him. You saw what? How many carries last year? 60 carries from this guy, and he still averaged over 4.5 yards a carry. You saw such a limited size from this guy. He is Jerick McKinnon. If you bought in on Jerick McKinnon and you're now rushing to sign Alfred Morris, you're dumb. They're not the same dude. I'm saying they're not even close to same. I understand that Alfred Morris had some success. He's also going to be 30 in 2 months. Now he had a couple good games last year, I know, but he is not the guy there. He can't be the guy.
Okay, this I'm on board with Miles 100% here. Like,
you're wrong.
This is why. Okay, I expect without Jerick McKinnon, because I think Jerick McKinnon's a step above, just one step above Matt Breida. If he wasn't, why would you bring him in? That's argument
one.
Right
one step above. That's why he was the starter.
That's argument one. Argument two is like, Alfred Morris can absolutely be what Carlos Hyde was last year, and then Matt Breida can be what Matt Breida was last year, and you're still just as effective. You're still just as effective. You need Kyle Shanahan runs two backs like this exactly all the time. Freeman, Coleman, Morris, and it's slipping me, but they had a receiving back in Washington when he was the offensive coordinator there. Like, that would come in on third downs. Like, Matt Breida is going to be what Matt Breida was last year for you in the second half of the season, and Alfred Morris is going to be what Carlos Hyde was for you last year.
You know why Alfred Morris got opportunity?
Maybe not to the same level, but...
Do you know why Alfred Morris got opportunity in Kyle Shanahan's offense? Because he was the body. He was the one they had. Now he has an athlete, the kind of guy that he typically runs. The reason they got Jerick McKinnon, the reason they spent $1 billion more than any other team was willing to, the reason that Jerick McKinnon got run out of town by Latavius Murray. Now all of a sudden Alfred Morris is the man. 30-year-old Alfred Morris that was forgotten about on every team and nobody wanted. They signed 3 weeks ago?
We're not saying he's the man, but he's the relevant starter in that backfield.
He's not.
Yeah, I'm loving the tone so far.
He's not. He's not.
Let me make it even worse. Are you guys just mad because all of a sudden my 1 per round fantasy team looks even better right now when I drafted Alfred Morris and Jay Ajayi? You guys laughed at me at the time?
This is not the time for you to start that.
It was like a year and a half ago.
And you also drafted Jerick McKinnon in a bunch of leagues, so chill.
I drafted him in 1. And he fell in my lap, so I was okay with it. All right. So, listen, I think it goes without saying that you kind of want to wait that out and see how that plays out. It'll be interesting to see
sign Matt Breida
how that plays out over this first week. So, listen, the NFL season is here. Every team in the league, all 32, are hungry for the Lombardi Trophy. At this point, everybody has an equal shot, at least on paper, to win Super Bowl 53. That means even the Jets have a shot to win Super Bowl 53. I'm just continuing to get people fired up. But listen, every team right now is hungry. They're done with training camp. They're done hitting each other, and they're ready to get at it on the field. And that's why I think it's so perfect that our sponsor, Gorb, that's GHORBH, reminds you that in life, you've got two choices. You could either get hungry or you can be hungry. And right now, all of these teams in the league are hungry for a Lombardi Trophy. That's the dream this year, and that's what they're chasing after. And they don't want to look back on this season and wish that they would have went for it, or wish that they would have chased after it and signed that extra player, or not traded Khalil Mack away for no reason at all. They want to get hungry instead of being hungry. Check out gorb.com, GHORBH.com today. You could find some great gear for men, for women, for kids, all different colors, all different styles. Gorb.com. Give you that constant reminder that in life you've got two choices. You could either get hungry or be hungry.
I can't even believe how much Miles loves Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah. So what you guys out there are missing is we have a chat going on the side. And I said I don't or didn't care nearly enough about the Breida versus Morris to fight about it. I just prefer the running back. The only thing I don't agree with is I'm so wishy-washy on McKinnon. And you were like, you love McKinnon. I didn't draft him in 8 leagues.
Why'd you draft him in the first round?
Roy Halou. That was the Washington back I couldn't think of. I had to look it up on this side. I'm breaking that conversation up.
Oh, boy.
Hey, let's get into the second half of this thing, Sal.
Yeah, let's get our question of the week. And we kind of touched on this off the top here, and it was inadvertent on my part. But considering it's week 1, and we don't know a ton yet about how certain players will fill or fit into their roles. How do you weigh playing a safer bet versus more of an upside guy? And this came from Michael in Pennsylvania, and kind of what I'm thinking in this situation, just to kind of throw a dart out there. Typically, a guy like a Shady McCoy or a guy, in that realm there, kind of maybe whether it's like a Jay Ajayi or whatever, versus maybe a guy who everybody feels really strongly about in Corey Davis as a breakout. Like, where do you weigh out playing a safer bet versus a guy with a higher upside to start the season?
I think Miles said it perfectly before, and I'm going to give him the credit. Like, week 1 is where you start the guys you drafted the highest. Like, if you start 3 receivers and Corey Davis was the 3rd receiver you took, well, it was for good reason. So now this is where you start Corey Davis. I'm always on the side of week 1 playing it safe. I'm trying to get to 1-0. I said it before. And that means playing your best players, playing your studs. Barring a crazy matchup, and even then, like, listen, if you drafted Saquon Barkley and you expect top things out of him, week 1 he's got Jacksonville. That's pretty daunting given the fact that we still don't know if the Giants' O-line is good. You should still be starting Saquon Barkley this week because running back 20 is running back 20 for a reason, and Saquon Barkley is running back 5 for a reason, or 6, 7, wherever you have him. So safety in week 1, and then once you see what the season actually looks like, then you can start getting cute and start trying to go for big games. Honestly, you should only be going for big games if you need to make a splash. If you're going 1-0 every week, playing it safe, it's the way to go. Listen, I pick on him all the time because Deal's so predictable at what he does. He plays it safe, and he goes 1-0 almost every week.
Yeah, it's and I know semantics, Rock, and you said it how you say it, but like I won't even say getting cute. I just taking shots. That's a thing to do if you start 1-3, or that's a thing to do on crazy bye weeks.
Yep.
You're missing a bunch of guys. If you put out like the safest of what's on the waiver wire, you're going to lose. So you need to start a Keelan Cole. You need to throw D. Westbrook out there. You need to start Blake Bortles. I'm all Jags here apparently, but like those are the types of players you take shots with. And playing it safe sounds like an insult. I'm just going to prefer stability. Like for instance, I have 4 shares of Josh Gordon. He is not in my lineup this week on any of those 4 teams because it's not worth. Yeah, okay, he could go 11 for 175 and 2 touchdowns. Anybody going to be shocked by that? Nope. Not really. But I'm not taking the risk when
he'll be in your week 2 lineup.
yeah, he will.
Rest of the season.
he could also play 40% of the offensive snaps and get a catch for 8 yards. I'm not. I can't. It's not that I'm being boring and don't want to be. You don't get flashy points. You don't get style points. I just want regular basic points. Stability.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm boring. I'm straight boring.
Yeah.
Like I start boring from my rankings, and then I go ahead and be boring at the draft, and then weeks 1 through 16, I'm pretty boring. So that's just how I play, and I've had some success with it. So it's all on your style of play and like what your plan is. Stick to your plan, but I'm gonna say all season, play your studs, man. Like don't. And as of now, the only ones you know are studs are the guys you drafted high and you have a plan for. So play those guys.
Yeah, and I don't need to add too much to this, but I will say don't fall for the Kenny Golladay effect.
Yeah, right.
Every year somebody's going to come out and have a splashy big week 1 because no one game planned for them. No one realized they had a role or whatever. Don't let that weigh in. If somebody has a big week 1 where you're considering sitting one of these safer guys who is going to be consistent all the way, and then you're riding these peaks and valleys all season long trying to guess if or when that's going to happen again. It's just every year it happens. There's always a Kenny Golladay.
And it's often in this Thursday night game. I can't, or at least a prime time. Dallas had a receiver like 3 or 4 years ago have 2 touchdowns, and then he had like 8 catches the rest of the year. If for some reason Mike Wallace goes off and scores 2 touchdowns on 140 yards this week, don't waste your waiver priority on him. It's a game. If he did it week 9, you'd be like, oh wow, nice game out of Mike Wallace. I wish he was in FanDuel. You're not wasting a priority on him. So treat week 1 like that too. I love that stuff. You nailed that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go. We call this no huddle because we look for quicker responses, but like we don't really follow it because
I talk forever.
but we give you good content. So these are some tougher start sit calls for this week. So you mentioned Josh Gordon. Are you starting Josh Gordon right away, or are you waiting to see how he fits back into the offense and to know that he's fully ready to go?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot this was on there when I just said it.
So I mean, basically anybody else could chime in.
Well, yeah. I'm gonna stick to my guns. I'm going to sit and wait unless like he is my third receiver in a three, and I start three. I mean, if you listen to the Football Goons and you draft accordingly, he should be like your third, maybe fourth receiver. Depending on how deep your league is, how many teams are in your league. I mean, if that's the case, then he shouldn't start this week, and you should be waiting to see what he looks like.
I'm starting Josh Gordon. I know I just talked about how I'm safe. I think Josh Gordon's safe. Last year, he came in cold off the streets week 12, first game in like 17 years, had 11 targets. He is a freak athlete. He's in as good a shape as Thor. And now he's played some games, and he has the best quarterback, whoever it is, that he's ever had. So, and, Pittsburgh's defense, it's up and coming. I like some of their pieces. He can still absolutely torch their secondary. So will I be surprised if he goes, 175-2? No, but I'll be surprised if he doesn't go 8 for at least 85 and a touchdown.
I'll be sad in 4 leagues.
Is it crazy that Josh Gordon? Is it crazy that Josh Gordon in the NFL looks like a man among boys? Like,
it's ridiculous.
He's just so jacked for a wide receiver. It's ridiculous.
In the spirit of Josh Gordon, just for week 1, I'm puff pass on Josh Gordon.
Yikes. I mean,
this is my favorite pod. This is my favorite pod we've ever done. The jokes tonight are just out of control. I give Miles and South. I bow down.
If Josh Gordon is not high and not suspended, the worst game he's ever had is 69 yards. His whole career.
Whoa. You're assuming that he's playing some of those games not high. That's not fair to do.
And we should say, in fairness to Josh Gordon, we do hope and we do believe that he's cleaned up his act. So we're just having fun.
I'm pretty much checked out for the rest of this podcast because now I'm thinking I should probably start Josh Gordon.
I was just kidding, by the way. That's not.
Yeah, because I have him again playing against you.
Yep.
No, I was just kidding. You can go ahead and say.
All right, listen. In a pinch,
joke.
In a pinch, assuming that you have to start one of these as your main back, or a main back in week 1. Who are you more confident to put in there? LaShawn McCoy or Peyton Barber?
Did you say if they're your main back?
No.
Yeah.
Well, we have to remember that there are leagues that play 12 plus teams. So somebody might have Shady McCoy as their number 1, and they might have, Barber as their.
Listen,
I can't relate.
Mistakes were made.
But you know what? This happens because honestly, what could have happened is you went receiver, and then you took McKinnon, McCoy, and kind of loaded up, and now McKinnon's gone. So it is what it is. My opinion, both have awful matchups defensively. I like the Saints defense and the Ravens defense against the run a ton. But I do think because I don't like Baltimore's offense, and I, along with everyone who knows anything about football, loves the Saints offense, I think the Bills will be in their game longer. So I think McCoy will be part of the game script longer. I could easily see Tampa just you're down 24-0 at the end of the first, and Peyton Barber's not a thing anymore. So
not to mention the fact that Shady at least gives you something more in the receiving game than Peyton Barber does.
Yeah, and as much as like Ronald Jones has looked terrible, you're still going to get him in the game. You're still going to get Jaquiz Rodgers in the game. Is Buffalo really rushing Chris Ivory out there? Like, probably not. So I just think Shady's more of a lock to be involved.
Yeah, I would agree there. I think McCoy's probably going to be more of a focal point of that offense. The one interesting thing about the Bucs to me is that they do always keep the running back heavily involved. They stay balanced. Even when they've been losing, they fall behind or whatever, they still, even to their detriment sometimes, they stick to the game script. They keep a balanced attack on offense. So it's worth noting. All right, so Big Ben has struggled on the road historically, but he's also owned Cleveland historically. Now, new year, new expectations there, but most expect them to be better this season. Is Big Ben a start or a sit this week?
Yeah, I think he's a lock. I mean, he has to start unless there are quarterbacks just so deep that, especially in 10-team leagues, I know there are teams where they have Ben backing up Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson, whatever, then that's fine. But don't overthink this. I know I just said the Browns are going to be better, especially if Lev Bell misses this game. I'm all over Ben. They're going to throw. They're going to throw to score. So lock him into your lineup for sure.
I agree 100%. I actually I kind of stayed out of the James Conner debate before. If Lev isn't there, I expect this to be all Ben, Brown, Juju, all over the place. So if Lev is there, I'm actually more hesitant on Ben. But if he's not, forget it. I can't have enough shares of Ben.
All right, so which Redskins back are you more confident in week one? Adrian Peterson or Chris Thompson?
I have a feeling Deal and I are going to disagree here.
I'm picking Matt Breida, man. I told you. What don't you understand?
I just, similar to what I said about Alfred Morris earlier, I'm just in on Peterson. He's a lock for more touches. And he was actually solid at times in Arizona last year. And Washington's got a really good offensive line. It's definitely better than the Cardinals. So I'm going to ride Peterson until he definitely can't do it. No, he's nowhere near the back. He has fallen off a bit. Nowhere near the back he was. But who's more likely to score a touchdown, Peterson or Thompson?
Peterson.
I mean, that's South said it earlier, and we'll say it a ton this season. Every podcast and website out there is going to say it. When you're really back against the wall, you got to shoot for the touchdown. You just have to. Yeah. And that's Peterson more likely to me.
Yeah, I own Thompson in a bunch of leagues. I love Chris Thompson, and he's not a player I typically love because he is injured a lot, of course. But when he's out there, his skill set's really good.
Yeah, he's great.
And the reason I like him, and I didn't like Arian Foster, Jamal Charles, fill in the blank with a million others, is because you get him in like the 13th round. I'm not drafting him anywhere. Would that matter? So I'm taking a flyer on a guy that it's not really a chance. If he's on the field, he's really good. So if it's a PPR league, Thompson, I'm not starting either week one, pretty much. And I'll start a receiver in the flex over either of these guys. But going forward is Chris Thompson for me.
All right, so who's a better start for week one, Jimmy G or Pat Mahomes?
I'm going to go first because I've been the biggest Jimmy G supporter
your cousin
to this point.
Yeah, it's family, man.
And I said this to Miles the other night. I'm going to take a huge step back. I think that Jimmy G is great for the 49ers. I think he's a winner. I think he finds ways to win games. I don't think he's going to fill stat categories. And Pat Mahomes at least has the better weapons around him in order to do so. Like, if you just take him straight on value, I'd rather throw to Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Travis Kelce, Kareem Hunt out of the backfield than get an argument over Matt Breida versus Alfred Morris.
Stop taking Matt Breida.
So yeah, I'm actually backing off the Jimmy G train here. And as much as I don't really care for Pat Mahomes, and I won't probably ever own him, gun to my head, South. These two are my choices. I'm taking Pat Mahomes.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how you came up with this one as like a big question mark. There's not a single player on San Francisco that's better than the counterpart in Kansas City. And while I think the Chargers are really tough, there's a better chance of that becoming a shootout than Niners at Minnesota.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think all the signs point to Mahomes here, except for the fact that I do think Garoppolo is a better quarterback than Mahomes, which should be taken into account, obviously. But so much more goes into fantasy points than who's the better player.
Well, don't you just to play devil's advocate here, knowing what you're saying, don't you think that means more passing opportunities for Jimmy G?
Passing opportunities, yes, but we're letting what happened in the NFC Championship cloud how little passing opportunities matter against Xavier Rhodes and Trey Waynes and Harrison Smith and that pass rush. Like, opportunities do not mean 330 yards and 3 touchdowns. This is not going to be a volume-based team. Like, they were ahead most of the season last year, and they were still a top 5 passing defense in the league.
Gun to your head. Who do you pick for who has the most points in fantasy this week? Pat Mahomes or Jimmy G?
I would go Pat Mahomes.
I think it's no question.
Yeah, I do too. And you mentioned, where did this question kind of come from? I was actually looking at some data today of players who were most widely paired, and this was only on Yahoo, but players who were most widely paired as like a quarterback that people were picking as their first quarterback and their second quarterback, whether it was a multi-quarterback league or whatever versus just a standard one quarterback, and this was their backup. This was an alarmingly often paired thing, and I thought to myself, well, that's pretty interesting because people took Jimmy based on the upside and the potential for him to maybe head toward a top tier status, but Pat Mahomes gives a ton of upside because of the players on his team.
They're the same guy. I'd rather have paired either one with like Matt Ryan in that area. More of a sure thing.
Right.
I know I'm not the smartest guy in the room, generally ever. Like, it actually makes sense to me that they're paired together so much because they're so closely pre-ranked across most boards that, like, if you're the last person to take a quarterback, you're going to be the first person to take your backup, or your quarterback too. You know what I mean? So, like, I see these guys going kind of like in a back-to-back scenario where, like, okay, I grab Pat Mahomes. Now I need to I want to grab the next best guy on the board to be my backup or to be my safe bet. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, like, at that point, like, because they're so close and in the middle of the pack, that's how I would view that.
You said safe point though, and I don't think either one are safe.
Yeah, but if you're going strictly off Yahoo pre-ranks or ESPN pre-ranks or whatever site you draft from, these two guys are statistically very close on all those sites. So what's happening is if you're the last guy to take one, he's the first.
But they're right there with Matt Ryan too. I don't have any problem with taking 2 quick quarterbacks. I just don't want 2 that are high upside, but also we don't know the floor kind of guys.
Right.
Yeah. I'd rather have Matt Ryan. And one of them. I don't mind either player. I hope I'm not coming off negative. I just don't like the combo of the 2 of them.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, that's kind of what sparked my interest.
I mean, we can't. I gotta say that we can't all be like Deal and I, who had our pro league draft last night, and our quarterbacks are Andrew Luck and Carson Wentz. We can't all be like that.
Well, what they're not telling you is that they drafted with 3rd graders who drafted based on color. So
it felt that way.
Why didn't they pick blue? What was you doing, 3rd grader?
There's a lot of blue though.
That's the prettiest blue is Colts blue.
Well, that's debatable. But
with who?
All right, we have derailed this
point. Yes. All right.
This was a fun one.
So listen, we're gonna leave you with this. We got this question that came across on YouTube. By the way, if you're listening to this after the fact, you can join in the conversation. You can watch this train wreck live every Tuesday night at 9:00 on our YouTube channel. Just search the Football Goons. We are here every single week on Tuesday night. It's a great way to interact, get your lineup questions answered. Even if we don't necessarily shout out a question on the podcast, we will still talk to you in the chat and give you 4 perspectives on any lineup questions that you might have. So definitely join us on Tuesday nights. What we want to do here is we're going to each take a team this week that we're going to pick in basically survivor pool format. If you're not familiar with the survivor pool, it's as simple as this. You pick a team to win this week. If they win, you get to pick again next week. If they don't, you're out. So we're going to track this.
And you can't repeat teams.
Yes, you cannot use the same team twice. So once you've used the team, you're done. So There's a couple different strategies to this. You could just try and take the best team versus the worst team every week and then risk the fact that you can't use a good team again. You could take a team who's a little bit more down toward the bottom who might have a good matchup. So we'll see how this all plays out, and we'll give everybody a quick chance here to explain their thought process. So let's go right down the line here as far as how I'm looking at you guys. Rock, who do you have this week as your survivor pick?
I'm taking the Tennessee Titans playing the Miami Dolphins. I know the game's in Miami. Don't think it matters a whole lot. I don't think Miami's very good. I might take who's ever playing Miami every week, except for the 3 weeks that I'd have to double up on AFC East teams. So I'll find somebody else those 3 weeks.
He's going with the old Browns method, where you just take whoever's playing the Browns.
It worked last year.
And it worked last year. So don't.
All right, Deal. Who do you have this week?
I actually picked the Saints, and I know it's one of those that's like, man, it's too early to pick the Saints. The Saints have a really tough schedule this year, and I know it's a divisional game. It's the Bucs without Jameis and banged up. Who knows what's happening in the backfield there? It could still be a shootout. It could still be, whoever the Bucs decide to run out there has a good game, but I think the Saints win easily, and then from here on out, I'm not really sure, so I'm going to use them right now.
I'm going to sneak in here next just to give you guys kind of a break from hearing me talk all the way through to the end. But I'm going with what's conceived or perceived as a little bit of a safer pick with the Jaguars versus the Giants here in week 1. I know you don't always want to, unload the clip, so to speak, to kind of make Rocco happy with all of his gun to head talk. But it's hard to take a team who most people think is going to have a good season. But kind of like you had mentioned, Deal, they do have a little bit of a tougher schedule the rest of the way. Their division is tough. They're going to play some tough games. I know they've got Philadelphia this year. Their schedule's tough. So combination of that and a combination of I don't want to risk being out week 1 at all. Like week 2, whatever, fine. I can at least say that I didn't get knocked out week 1. I don't want to be the guy that goes week 1. I think the Jags are going to kill the Giants. Like, they might actually murder them on the field. The Giants are scooping up players from other people's cuts just to fill out a defensive roster. That's how bad this is right now.
Not good.
So, I'm going Jags. Miles, who do you have?
I actually do like the strategy of trying to take some teams early that you don't think are very good. I have Baltimore drafting in the top 10 this year, so I'm going to take advantage of the week they play Buffalo and get them out of the way. They're hosting Buffalo, which I love. I just think the defense keeps them in it. That's kind of an easy one for me. So I'm going Ravens.
All right, there you have it. And as I said, we will track that and update you every week, let you know who is still alive and who's not. So good luck to everybody else who is doing a survivor pool this week as well. That's it for this week's edition of the show. Good luck to everyone in week 1 fantasy football, unless you're playing me. Then I hope you lose by 100. Be sure to keep up with us on social media, facebook.com/footballgoons, @footballgoons on the Twitter. And as I mentioned a couple times here, right here on our YouTube channel as well. You could subscribe to us. You can comment. You could check us out every Tuesday night live at 9 o'clock. It is absolutely going to be imperative that you check out footballgoons.com all season long. On Tuesdays, we're going to have our podcast every week at 9 o'clock. On Wednesdays, we are going to commit to dropping you guys our updated fantasy football rankings for that week. So for this week, week 1 will be out there. And then on Thursdays, we're going to give you our goons, our ghosts, and our daily fantasy values. Our goons are the guys that we think are going to overperform versus where they're pre-ranked. Our ghosts are the guys that we think are going to underperform versus where they're pre-ranked. And our daily values are just that, a guy who is priced a little bit cheaper, whether it's in FanDuel or DraftKings, who's probably going to give you a bigger return for the smaller investment. So you're going to get 4 different perspectives on all of those on Thursdays. So you have to keep it locked in. Footballgoons.com. Everything is free. There's no annoying banner ads. There's no pop-up videos that are going to come out. You're going to click on something and go right to the content because we know how obnoxious it is to deal with all that other stuff. Hey, good luck this week. We'll catch you guys next time.